welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Taylor and today we're going to be doing our May reading wrap up. But before I begin, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you love all things books. Now, the month of May was a good reading month in terms of quantity. In terms of quality of books, it was kind of a mixed bag on what I read. And in terms of completing my TBR that I picked out for myself in May, I got through 4.33 of the books because I'm like a third of the way through one of the other books. Let's just say I got a little burnt out on reading towards the end of May, so I didn't really finish much towards the end of May, that last week. And yeah. I mean, I'm kind of back in my reading mood. I just kind of need to actually go forth and finish or start and complete the book that I'm in the middle of, just because I'm in such a romance heavy mood, and trying to make it through my physical TBR that's primarily not romance is a bit of a chore. But let's go ahead and go over our reading stats for the month. So I completed 12 books in the month of May, and I'm currently in the middle of 2 books. I read 3 fantasy, 1 dystopian sci-fi, and 8 romance. And 5 of those were physical reads, 7 of them were Kindle, and 3 of them were YA, 9 adult, and only 1 queer read, or 1 officially queer read. And we did have 1 5-star for the month of May, although we did have a lot of 3 or in the middle of the 3-star range reads, which I will get to in a second. But if you don't know, I'm currently in the process of going through my TBR and doing a TBR takedown. Usually every quarter of the way through the year, I, do some culling. And as someone who's planning on moving next year, I'm putting an emphasis on decluttering this year, so I am in the process of decluttering books, so I will tell you if there's any of the books that I read this month that are going in that declutter pile. So let's work through all the books that I finished physically this month. So first up is probably my least favorite read of the month, which was This Ain't Our First Rodeo by Liara Tamani. This is a YA cowboy country romance following Sean and Josie. Josie has dreamed her whole life of taking over her family's ranch in Texas and training horses. However, her restaurant mogul parents are determined that she's going to go to college and essentially take over the restaurant business. So she's been sort of, good girl rebellion going on. So one night when she sneaks out to the rodeo carnival and is almost assaulted by this big old guy or this big old kid, Sean jumps in to save her, and he's an aspiring bull rider champion, and they have this magical night at the rodeo carnival, but due to circumstance they are ripped apart and don't get to meet up again until 3 years later, when they're both out looking for each other in the same place that they met. And now they're faced with a lot more of life challenges, with Sean trying to decide if he still wants to go into bull riding and Josie trying to save her family's restaurant. I will say this is definitely insta-love situation, so if you're not into that insta-love, because the dislike portion of things doesn't go on very long. I will also say that you need to check your trigger warnings for this one. Obviously, I mentioned the assault. That's pretty early on in the book. Also, this is a spoiler, so if you don't want spoilers, maybe skip this part, but a lot of people hate this, including me. An animal does die in this book. If you can't tell from the cover, you can probably see which animal dies. But in terms of, this is a really fast-paced, easy-to-fly-through read. I was intrigued. There were moments where I was, kicking and giggling my feet. However, this book definitely reads more of a YA Christian romance, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just not necessarily my thing. Also, there were plenty of moments in this book where the verbiage used was kind of if you listen to, modern music, or, modern music is only about girls enjoying sex and guys enjoying drugs and money, and then all these other things of kind of, a very much so very modesty-driven stories from what I've heard, even though, yeah. So, it was just a lot of things that were not to my taste. I'm sure this is for someone, it's just not for me. And then, obviously, this month, our first TBR takedown video was reading vampire romances for a week, or vampire books for a week. And if you've been on my channel for a hot second, then you would know that I don't really love vampire stories. There's just something about the angst and the drama that just does not appeal to me. We did find one vampire story that I really did enjoy, but this one, The Poisoner, was not one of them. The Poisoner by Ivy Ophelia is the first book in a trilogy of gothic romances following Silas and Alina. Silas is a Vipera? Vipera is what they're called. Essentially the vampire character in the story. And one night he spots Alina and is fully enthralled with her and has decided that he's going to make her his new prey, his new plaything, and eventually probably more than that. But what he doesn't know about Alina is Alina, the daughter of the town apothecary who just recently passed away, likes to make poisons to, rid off bad men. And so now they're stuck in this battle of predator and prey and whether or not they want to be more than just those playthings to each other. This book I gave 3.75 stars and 3 chili spice. I also have to put a trigger warning on this one because if you have problems with consent, and just if you have problems with consent, it's not even consensual non-consent because Silas just sort of takes what he wants. So, yeah, but Alina also doesn't seem to mind as much. I don't know. And there are definitely moments like Silas is not very like easy on her. Like all the Viper in here do kind of like take advantage of her. There's no really like true assault in here, but let's just say Alina's having to struggle with no longer having autonomy over her life. Actually, no, there is mention of assault in here, so do keep that in mind. I was actually kind of hooked on this. I read this really quickly. It was kind of like crack. Like there was something in it that kept me reading it, but it didn't quite keep me as intrigued as some of the other vampire stories. So I'm on the fence as to whether or not I want to keep this one. If you couldn't tell, I'm donating the first one. But this one, I'm not sure if I want to keep the physical copy because they're on Kindle. So I kind of want to read the Arachnid, but we'll see. Let's move on to the vampire story that I did like and that has made me believe in vampire stories again. However, Blood Moon by Brittany S. Lewis did lean way more into the werewolves in this first book in the series, so we'll see how I feel about the vampire or the dampire of the next book. So, yes, this story is essentially inspired by the early 2000s, 2010s paranormal romance, Twilight, Vampire Diaries, all that, and essentially she is turning it on its head and finally giving people of color, particularly black women, the stage. She said justice for Bonnie Bennett, and I can see that. We're following Mirabella Owens, who lives in the town of Timber Plains, which is steeped in lore about battles between vampires and werewolves, as well as epic love stories between the two creatures. However, after her mother abandoned her 5 years ago, she sort of stopped believing in the magic of the town. But when she gets a full ride into the Timber Plains University, she cannot turn down the opportunity to finally escape the home that has sort of haunted her whole life, where her dad has been spending years putting her back together. But when she arrives there, she runs into Seven, an old childhood friend who is totally infatuated with her, who's also the son of the dean of students, as well as Julian, who seems to have distrust and dislike for her off the bat. In fact, he hates her so much that he tells her she needs to leave town. And while she's there, she discovers that she's not quite as safe as she thought she was. However, not a single person in the town or on campus wants to tell her why she's in trouble. But hey, if she hangs out with Julian enough, she might be able to pry it out of him. Obviously, this is love triangle. It's vampires, werewolves, hybrids, witches, all the things in between. I gave this book 4.75 stars. Her romance with Julian is just chef's kiss. The ending has me wanting the next book immediately. Well, hopefully we're going to dive more into the vampire lore in that book. And listen, Seven, the other part of this love triangle, he's just a cute little puppy dog, and I kind of like him. I don't hate it. So, then, our almost 5-star read for the month. I read it, the book talk sensation that is Daggermouth by H.M. Wolf. Listen, you want to talk about trigger warnings in this one. The best way to describe it is feminine rage personified. Like, even though this book, you get more POVs from the male main characters, you get the female main characters in this and the females in this story who aren't even, you're getting to hear their voices from, they're the ones driving the narrative of how the society has broken people down. So if you have a problem with domestic violence, assault, violence against women and all that, do keep that in mind, that is a huge through line throughout this book. And you did get the character of Maximus Serral, who is the big bad in here, and he treats and thinks about women in such a poor light. So essentially the general premise of this story that has been pitched to everyone is that you are following Shadra and Grayson. Grayson is the son of Maximus Serral, the executioner, the one who executes rebels on stage for the whole of the heart to see. And Shadra is the top Daggermouth, the mercenary in the lower boundaries, who is tasked with killing Grayson Serral, the executioner. And she has a strong vendetta against the heart because the heart is the reason that her parents are dead, because in the heart, love between rings is a death sentence, and her parents found love and they were in different rings or different social classes. However, when Shadra goes to kill Grayson, something goes wrong, and now they are forced into this arranged marriage, so Maximus Serral can show that even the lowest levels of the heart, even the Daggermouth, can be tamed. And of course, while these two are forced into arranged marriage, secrets come to light about who they really are, as well as they may realize they might not hate each other as much as they previously thought. 4.75 stars, 3 chili spice. Ooh, I'm just going to say, I love Shadra and Grayson, but justice for Callum and Lyra. Justice for Callum and Lyra. Yeah. Go read it. It's the first book in a duology. We don't know when Python is going to come out, but it's just recently gotten trad published, or it's going to be coming out in trad publishing in the month of June. So go support her. Go support her, because we need to support women in this time, especially books that really personify the feeling of being a woman in these times. Then we have my only 5-star read for the month, and this is actually the first book I completed this month. The Spells We Cast by Jason Joan. For all my Pride Month people, because I am filming this on June 2nd, happy Pride Month. Pride book to pick up. And we all know that Jason Joan is one of my favorite authors of all time. If you want a fun, giggly time, a little YA queer read, he's for you. So The Spells We Cast is the first book in a duology, a YA magical duology, following Nigel, who is the son of a very powerful mage in the guild, is the grandson of a very powerful mage in the guild. However, his father is a very big known failure in the family because he did not pass the culling. So in this world, the guild is essentially the people who are tasked with taking down the depraved, the creatures that come up from humans' ill emotions and start to attack people. However, in order to make it into the guild, in order to keep your magic, you must pass the culling at the age of 18. And only 100 18-year-olds every year pass the culling, and Nigel is determined to pass it because he doesn't want to become his nasty old father, who sort of sank into misery after failing the culling. However, during his first task for this culling, he runs into Ori, another mage vying to get into the guild. And they discover during this first battle that not only do they share a more personal connection, they may share a magical connection. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that. The relationship, the soulmates, the fated mates aspect of this, you know I love a fated mates. I love a soulmates. It's an always been you. I love it. And this is how you do a short book or a duology, because this book in itself, it had plot, it had storyline. Even though it only took place over a few days, it was everything you needed. It was everything you needed, and it made me giggle and laugh and feel things. I will say, technically, death of an animal does happen in here, so keep that in mind. But I highly recommend, and I can't wait to pick up book 2 as soon as I can get my hands on it. Just trying to find book 1 was quite interesting. Then our last physical book that we read this month was This Ravenous Fate by Haley Dennings. Actually, no, this is queer. So I read 2 queer books this month. I am going to be donating this one. This is a sapphic YA vampire story set in the 1920s Harlem following Elise and Layla. Elise Saint is the daughter of the famed Saint Empire, the creators of Saint Steel, the only weapon that is able to kill the Reapers, the vampires in this story. And she is coming home after 5 years, having had to leave 5 years ago because of the thing that went down with Layla. Layla was her childhood best friend, possibly maybe becoming more. However, when Mr. Saint sends Reapers or gets Reapers to attack Layla's family and kill her parents and turn her into a Reaper, she attacks Lise for her role in the death of her family. And now 5 years later, when Reaper killings seem to be on the rise and Layla gets blamed for one of these major Reaper killings, Layla and Elise are forced to work together to figure out what's going on, and of course they have to reconcile with everything that went down 5 years ago and whether or not they're okay with becoming more than, friends to enemies. In the kitchen, anyone? Yeah, this book, there's nothing inherently wrong with this book. This book has a lot to it, especially with emotional depth. It's just, I felt the length of this book, like, the entire time I was reading this, I'm like, oh, okay. Is it bad to say I was a little bored? Maybe. But sometimes the length of a book can really affect the pacing of the book, and a lot of this book really hinged on a lot of mystery solving, and sometimes if it leans more mystery than thriller, that can really add to the drawn-out nature of things. I also feel like this book needed to pick an ending, because it felt like the last 3 or 4 chapters, all of them could have been endings. But hey, it's only a duology, so if you are someone who is looking for that YA, gothic, sapphic, historical, vampire-esque genre, this one might be for you. I've heard a lot of people say if you like the movie Sinners that this one might be up your alley. And I like Sinners, I think vampire stories, it's just a 90% failure rate for me. But I ended up giving it 3.25 stars. Now let's move on to all the books that I don't own physically. So, first up, we finally finished Direbound by Sable Sorensen. This also has another vampires-esque werewolves-inspired plot. However, when you read it, it doesn't read as much like the vampires versus werewolves, but we'll see. Essentially, the story we are set in is in this very cold, magical city of Strumfrost. And we're following Maren Cooper. She is living in the slums of Strumfrost. She is a street fighter to survive. And she is tasked with taking care of her younger sister because her mother is dealing with an affliction that causes her to hallucinate a lot. But when her sister is stolen by the Nabbers, these siphons that are believed to be stealing children to steal their blood, to keep them alive, essentially Strumfrost's mortal enemy who they've been at war with for many years, she decides to enroll in the army to go to the front and save her sister from the siphons. However, the day she enrolls happens to be the day when the bonding trials happen, and these bonding trials essentially are a series of perilous tasks to go find direwolves, and if you are chosen by a direwolf to bond, then you two will be forced to work together and train together as a part of this elite army to fight the siphons for the rest of your life. And Maren doesn't want to bond because she wants to make it to the front, but when she's forced into a bond by the wolf Anasa, now she has to deal with her new life as a bonded and what that means. The only problem is she's got a boyfriend on the outside who's looking to marry her, who she really wants to get back to, a sister who she really wants to save, and an alpha named Stark on the inside who seems to always send her a death glare, who she doesn't know that she could ever quite appease, and everything else that goes along with it. I end up giving this book 4 stars, 3 chili spice. I have to point out one thing. Miss Maren Cooper, for a girlie who talks a lot about modesty, you and Lee was going at it, and you weren't doing much vanilla in that going at it. Miss Girl is a submissive for many, many chapters. Now, this book did take me 2 months to read, so that could have attributed the fact that it wasn't going to reach 5-star status. But I will say justice for Maren, because she was getting a lot of hate. She was making some stupid decisions, but I feel like, girl, some of the stuff he was doing and some of the stuff he was saying, particularly towards the end there, valid. Because these people ain't telling you shit. They ain't telling you shit. So, but I also have this problem where you set up a story, and this has become a common trope, where there's this love triangle or there's this first love interest in the first book what is introduced that's there for throughout this whole book that you know for a fact is not going to be the love interest, that you know is not going to end up together, you know is just sort of going to probably end up being a bad situation. And yet somehow we spend so much time on them only to find out, lo and behold, guess what? They ain't shit. Which I don't think that's a spoiler. I think that's a common trope, and I think when you read this, you can figure it out. But I'm just like, come on, Lee, come on. You can tell, you can know that those two ain't gonna end up together. Okay, but yeah, I get 4 stars, 3 chili spice. I have Furybound downloaded, so I am interested to see where they take the story from here. But I am a little worried. I think now that we don't have Lee, well, we'll see. We'll see how this love triangle, love situation goes. But the actual fantasy part of it, I did enjoy. The romance was just a little like, okay, we'll have to wait and see. So I actually took a break to charge my camera, and it turns out I actually did read 13 books this month, which was probably why I couldn't figure out that I read 2 queer books, because this Ravenous Fate was not on there. But let's move on. I, like everyone else, got into an off-campus hangover after that TV show, But before we got into the TV show, I wanted to reread the deal to see if I still disliked it. Which, dislike is a very strong word. It's just that it's not my favorite. I read it a few years ago, the original book in the series, and I was just like, not for me. It doesn't really hold the test of time. This is very much to a 2015 book that has verbiage that I don't really like. But after reading the series, I conclude that this book is definitely of its time. I don't know that it holds the test of time, but is it a fun, quick, sort of spicy read? Yeah, sure. So they're all kind of middling in that 3-star range for me, but I'll go through each of the books. So the first book, The Deal, is following Garrett and Hannah. Garrett is the team captain for the Briar U hockey team. He's the son of famed Phil Graham, a big famous hockey star, and he and Garrett have a past that Garrett does not like to talk about. However, when Garrett realizes that he is failing his ethics class and he needs at least a C to stay on the hockey team, he enlists the help of his classmate Hannah, who's kind of always ignored, but when she's the only person to get an A on this really hard exam, he's like, I need her. And Hannah's like, I got other things to focus on other than being your tutor. And they have this little dislike to lover situation where she reluctantly becomes his tutor. And through this relationship, they start to learn a lot about each other and their past traumas. And, you know, friendship blooms and then romance and so on and so forth. I gave the first book 3.5 stars, 2 chili spice. Listen, if I had to listen to Garrett Graham say stripper tits one more time in this book, I was probably going to implode on myself. But are he and Hannah a really nice couple? Yes. Are they my favorite couple in the series? Not necessarily, but they are definitely the blueprint, the foundation. And I think the discussions around sexual assault in this story and that were explored in the show are really pertinent to what needs to be discussed nowadays. Then the second book is The Mistake, which follows John Logan and Grace. Now, the TV show is switching up the order and is actually going to start with the third book next, but canonically, John Logan and Grace technically come next. John Logan has been hung up on his best friend's girl, Hannah, for a while now, and in order to avoid these feelings, he's going out and indulging on every vice possible. Parties, girls, alcohol, you name it. But one night he accidentally shows up at the wrong door, and instead of finding a party, he finds freshman Grace. And because he left his phone at home and is in need of someone to come pick him up because he didn't drive himself there, Grace agrees to let him hang out and use her phone and basically stay until he can get a cab. However, Logan, being the guy that he is, needing to hit everything that walks in front of him, not as much as Dean, but still, they have this sort of like spice little encounter, and then he sort of up and leaves. But he can't quite get out of his head that she didn't finish like she said she did. So he once again seeks her out to finish what they started, and they start this little romance that's kind of clouded over the fact that he's still hung up on Hannah. But after one singular mistake that leaves Grace running from him, he determines that he is going to have to win her back no matter what. Now, this is my favorite book out of the series in terms of plot and storyline. I gave it 3.75 stars and 2 chili spice. Logan is not my favorite guy, but Grace is my favorite girl because she is the definition of walk 'em like a dog, because she had Mr. John Logan groveling, going through hoops to get her back. And you know what, Grace? Love you, girl. You know what it means to have to like actually be a good person. She went from people pleaser, getting walked all over a doormat, to some actual character growth. And I love that for you, babe. Then on to the third book, The Score, following Dean and Allie, everyone's favorite couple and the couple that we are about to see on screen next. I have to preface this by saying, Book Dean, I don't really love Book Dean. Show Dean, I do like. So Dean De Laurentiis is the hockey player, rich boy. He doesn't want to go on to be a professional hockey player, but he's got family money. He essentially is determined to tap every single person who walks in his direction. If you can walk and breathe and you are a female, you have probably met up with Dean at some point. And one night, Allie is staying over at the boys in order to avoid getting back again with her long-term, off-again, on-again relationship with her ex, Sean. And Dean's like, well, the best way to get over someone is to get under someone, because Allie kind of interrupted his potentially spice-filled night. And Allie's like, I'm not going to do that. But of course, they end up having one spicy night where Allie's like, we can't repeat this again. We can't tell anyone. I literally just broke up with my ex. And also my best friend is dating your friend. And Dean's like, I want her no matter what. So they strike up a friends with benefits relationship that eventually turns into more. I gave this book 3.5 stars. stars, 3 chili spice, our spicy little duo. I will say, if you are someone who doesn't like Friends with Benefits, or you want the couple to get together a little quicker, they have Friends with Benefits for a good majority, at least 70 to 75% of the story before they get together, and then the third act conflict kind of comes in almost directly after. Also, trigger warnings for this one. This may be a spoiler, so hop together a few seconds, but there is death in this story, and we're dealing with the death of a loved one in this one, so yeah. And then the final book, we have The Goal, which is John Tucker and Sabrina's book. So John Tucker is the final of the boys. He's our sweet mom of the house. He cooks, he cleans, he takes care of everyone. He's a definition of gentleman in the streets, freak in the sheets, and it is determined by the first night that we meet Sabrina. Sabrina is essentially Dean's mortal enemy when it comes to school. Sabrina is a girl who takes no shit. She knows what she wants, and she's determined to bring herself out of the life that she is currently living, because it's not been great to her in the past years. But Sabrina does have a little vice in that she likes to go after athletes, but she's sworn off hockey players ever since Dean De Laurentiis came into her life. But Tucker is determined that he sees her, he wants her, he's gonna get her. And he does just that, and they have a nice little one-night stand, and Tucker's determined he's gonna make her his girlfriend. But after it's found out that Sabrina is pregnant, Tucker's like, I'm gonna make that girlie my wife. Like, we gonna be together. You do what you need to do, which ultimately Sabrina decides to keep the kid. And yeah, so it kind of goes from there. I gave this book 3.25 stars, 2 chili spice. It is my least favorite book in terms of the fact that I think this one does not hold the test of time in terms of the verbiage used, because there's a lot of language in here, particularly in the first half of the book, coming from the side characters that I do not love. However, John Tucker is my favorite guy. But Sabrina, girlie, I wanted to shake you. I wanted to shake you. You needed to come to your senses, because you've got a man who's financially literate, who is educated, knows what he wants in life, has ambitions. He loves you down. All he wants to do is provide the world to both his girls, his daughter, and who he wants to make his future wife. He loves his family. Now, could he stand up to Dean and his mom more? Absolutely. But this man out here ready to give you the world, and you're out here thinking you're dragging him down. Could not be me. Could not be me. We need to rectify that situation in the TV show. But hey, John Tucker, my man, we need more John Tucker edits, because we knew I was going to fall for him. And then the last 2 books that I read are from the Stryker Brothers series by Audrey Vaughn. I am currently in the middle of reading the 3rd book, and the 4th book is set to come out, I think, later this year. But the first book is Sip's About to Go Down. So the first book in the series, this is a small town romance series set in small town Tennessee, and we're following the 4 Stryker brothers, essentially the 4 sons of the big, rich guy in town. First book is a dislike rivals to lover situation following Wes and Rose. They have been competing since babies in their small town cutest baby pageant when Wes outdid Rose, and they have been rivals ever since. But 10 years after Rose left the small town of Jepson, she is brought back after her failed engagement, and her career is kind of going down the toilet. So she agrees to help out the Stryker family with their upcoming, launch of these canned cocktails, but she is essentially forced to not only work with, but live with Wes in order to get her feet off the ground again. And of course, as they are forced to work and live together, they start to realize that this rivals that they have actually is a little bit more of sexual tension personified. I gave it 4.5 stars, 2 chili spice. It's a fun, giggly, cutesy little time, and you know what? Sometimes we just need quick, short romance reads. The same thing goes for Just the Tipsy, the 2nd book in the series. We are following Waylon and, what is her name? Waylon and, it's not Bree. It's not Bree, is it? No. I cannot remember what the girl's names is, and yeah, oh well. I've been reading a lot, so it was bound to happen that I was going to finally forget someone's name. But we are following Wes's twin, Waylon. He's a town veterinarian. He's been the overachiever of the family his whole life, and he is dealing with the pressure of his mother to constantly overachieve, as well as the pressure falls on all of his girlfriends. But after being essentially scorned by the same girl for the last 2 times in his life, he has sworn off relationships. But however, he's attracted to the new girl in town. And our new girl is a former model influencer who just broke off her engagement to her shitty ex. and she's decided to move into Jepson because her great aunt left her a house there, as well as a dog. And of course, this house just happens to be next to Waylon, and one night Waylon's like, I need to get my mom off my back, can you be my fake date? And she's like, sure. And of course, this fake date turns into a spicy bucket list lessons in seduction situation. And it's cute, it's fun, it's sweet. Mr. Waylon, gentleman in the streets, freak in the sheets. We love it. We love it. And yeah, I think, it's 4.5 stars, 2 chili spice. I'm going to probably give about the same rating to every book in the series. But who knows? I'm on the 3rd book and that's a second chance. So we'll see. But those are all the books I read in the month of May. Let me know what you read in May. Did we have any great reads, some mid-reads? What was it like? Are we all still in our off-campus hangover? Who knows? And I will see y'all in the month of June.